What's the first thing a sane person does when they hear the call of the void? They hang up. The year is 2025. Mankind has explored 0.0000001% of space. And yet, we're still hoping that something out there will talk to us. Like an awkward teenager sending messages into the void, desperately hoping for a reply. I once knew a man who spent 43 years listening to radio static, hoping to hear aliens. When the aliens finally called, it was a telemarketing scam trying to sell him extended warranty on his consciousness.
Hey, just wondering if you got your photos printed?
Logos minted?
What?
The unknown has always been humanity's greatest fear, and its greatest temptation. We point our satellites at the stars not because we know what's out there, but precisely because we don't. We're drawn to the darkness like moths to a flame, even knowing we might get burned. Welcome to Voices of the Void, where your job description includes signal technician, satellite repairman, and full-time janitor. The last guy left the place so filthy, it'll take you 3 actual hours of real-time cleaning before you can even see the floor. Oh, and there might be aliens. They don't help with the cleaning. You play as Dr. Kell, a walking mental breakdown with a PhD in the survival instincts of a lemming with vertigo. Your student debt could make a small nation weep. Which explains why you accepted a job in the ass crack of nowhere. Likely the only other thing that's seen these Swiss Alps more than you is fucking tax evasion. Your new employer, Alpensignal Observatorium, has graciously provided you with 1 concrete facility that smells like despair, 24 satellite dishes that break if you look at them wrong, and a basement that's pretty much a crime scene. They did not provide colleagues, adequate cleaning supplies, or an explanation for why there's a human skull, a pool of blood and bones in the supply closet next to the coffee filters. This game is the unholy offspring of a job simulator and an existential crisis. What happens when someone asks, what if we combine the isolation of The Shining with the career fulfillment of data entry, and then actually made it? Your tasks are deceptively simple. Maintain satellite dishes scattered across the forest like cosmic lawn ornaments. Collect strange signals from the depths of space. Process them into something resembling data. And try not to think about why the mannequins keep changing positions when you're not looking. You exist at the boundary between the known and the unknown. A human interpreter of cosmic whispers. A translator of static into meaning. A lonely consciousness facing the incomprehensible. For this, you'll be paid in points. A currency accepted by exactly 1 store, which conveniently only sells items to make you better at your job. It's the gig economy taken to its logical conclusion. Work harder to earn the privilege of working harder. The company health plan doesn't cover psychological damage from possible alien contact, but it does include free MREs that taste like they were manufactured before the Berlin Wall fell. Is it an accurate reflection of scientific fieldwork? Absolutely. I spent 3 years at a remote Arctic research station, and by day 4 I was having passionate conversations with a mop I named Jeffrey. By week 6, Jeffrey had turned against me. Much like Dr. Kell, I only survived by maintaining a strict regimen of MREs and paranoia. Oh, and there's something in the woods. Several somethings, actually. They don't pay taxes, they don't respond to LinkedIn requests, and they definitely don't care about your personal space. This is a game built around isolation, about the things we hear when we're truly alone, and about why you should never, ever microwave a deer skull. Let's spend a month in the shoes of a man whose sanity is held together by government-issued coffee and the desperate hope that someone out there is listening. Just remember, in space, no one can hear you submit your timesheet. But before we dive in, a confession. I actually tried playing this game about a year or 2 ago. I bounced off it hard. The signal processing system seemed too complicated, the satellite maintenance felt tedious, and my brain, smooth as a freshly waxed bowling ball, couldn't quite wrap itself around what I was supposed to be doing. So I uninstalled it and moved on with my life. Then a few weeks ago, a viewer with the appropriately cosmic username, @somethingfromouterspace, left a comment that simply read, "You could make a video of Voices of the Void. Sometimes the void speaks to you through YouTube comments, I guess." That simple suggestion was enough to make me give it another shot. And I'm glad I did, because this time I was absolutely hooked from the first. But I wish I knew what I was getting into. 500 gigabytes of footage, Countless hours spent trying to decide which alien encounters, which bizarre events, which moments of existential dread to include. And the fact that it's completely free is absolutely insane. A game this expansive, this detailed, this utterly unhinged. Free. In any rational universe, the developers would be charging at least £30 for this cosmic horror playground. I'm not complaining, mind you, just baffled by the sheer audacity of it all. But before we dive into the cosmic horrors lurking in the Swiss Alps, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps the algorithm gods smile upon this channel, and you'll be notified when I post more videos about obscure games that will keep you awake at night. Leave a comment if you've played Voices of the Void, or if you have suggestions for future games I should cover. Now, let's get into it. Dr. Kell arrives at what will either be his career-making scientific post, or his final resting place. The odds heavily favor the latter. The Alpha Root base looks like a Soviet architect's fever dream after a particularly nasty vodka binge. Concrete walls, concrete floors, concrete ambience. I've seen maximum security prisons with more personality and better room service. You're greeted by three things upon arrival. Trash that predates your birth certificate, mannequins in quantities that would make department store display designers uncomfortable, and the dawning realization that whoever was here before you either left in a panic or was taken against their will, based on the locked door in the basement with hanging cow carcasses visible through the window. I'm betting on the latter. The workstation is a technological marvel. If the marvel in question is, how many ways can we make this job unnecessarily complicated? 4 terminals arranged in what I can only describe as reluctant proximity. One detects signals, one tunes them, one plays them back, and one processes them. It's as if someone took a single functioning machine, dismembered it, and scattered its components as a sadistic test of human patience. The computer probably still has Windows 95 installed, and I swear it makes dial-up noises when processing anything more complex than a static image. But hey, at least you have emails. Your supervisor, Dr. Bao, specializes in passive-aggressive communication. Hello, Dr. Kell, please deliver free level 1 signals and check the hash codes on satellites Foxtrot, Tango, and Quebec. Also, we don't care if you've seen something watching you from the trees. Funding doesn't cover psychological support. Regards. If corporate indifference could be distilled into pure form, it would be Dr. Bao's emails. First night in, I decided to explore the base. Big mistake. The basement houses the circuit breakers, an incinerator for trash, and the aforementioned locked door with cow carcasses. There's also a human skull tucked in the corner. Standard workplace hazards covered in section 7.3 of your employee handbook, right between proper stapler technique and what to do if you accidentally summon an eldritch entity. The garage contains your ATV, a vehicle with handling characteristics best described as suicidal. And a drone pad for deliveries. Upstairs are your living quarters, complete with a bed that feels like it's stuffed with concrete chips, a microwave that will become far more important than you initially realize, and enough trash to qualify as a landfill. First impressions, this place makes the back rooms look like a 5-star resort. But here's the weird thing. After a few days of cleaning, organizing, and making the space your own, the concrete hellhole starts to feel like home. The barren and dirty workroom becomes cozy. The dim lighting becomes atmospheric. The constant hum of machinery becomes a soothing white noise that lulls you to sleep. Stockholm Syndrome? Probably. But there's something genuinely satisfying about transforming this dump into a functional living space. Ever wanted to be paid in Monopoly money to listen to cosmic static while surrounded by mannequins that may or may not be alive? No? Well, congratulations, that's your job now. And despite my sarcasm, it's oddly compelling. The signal collection process is elegantly simple in the way that brain surgery with a spoon is elegantly simple. First, you use the detector to find signals, which manifest as little blips on a big star map. Good luck seeing them with default equipment. It's like trying to find a specific snowflake in a blizzard while blindfolded and being repeatedly kicked in the shins. At least you have a ping that helps point you in the right direction. But unfortunately, without any upgrades, it takes about 12 fucking eons for it to recharge. Once detected, however, the satellite dishes will begin moving until they are locked onto that point. At this point, you tune into the signal by adjusting frequency and polarity until the downloader hits 100%. This is where things get fun, and by fun, I mean makes you question your life choices. Without upgrades, the download speed rivals continental drift. I started a download, went to make a cup of tea, came back, and the progress bar had moved exactly 2 pixels. I think I saw a snail overtake it at one point. After downloading, you transfer the signal to the playback terminal. Surprise, it's static! Sometimes it's high-pitch static, sometimes it's low-pitch static. If you're really lucky, it's medium-pitch static with occasional clicks that might be Morse code, or might be your equipment slowly dying. Who knows? This is what you spent 7 years in university for. Now, to make this static slightly less staticky, you transfer it to a drive and process it. The first level of processing might reveal that it's not just random noise. It's organized noise! How exciting! Levels 2 and 3 might actually produce something resembling a coherent sound or image, but don't get your hopes up. The universe has a lot to say, and most of it is You then package these drives, typically around 2 to 3, after they've been processed to the level that Dr. Bao suggests, alongside a note comprising of the hashes from nearby satellites, but we'll get into that in a second. This brings me to your other job, maintaining the satellite array. 24 satellites named after the NATO phonetic alphabet. From Alpha to... wait, where's Zulu? Oh, that's probably nothing to worry about, and definitely not a clue to something sinister. Nope, not at all. Just a convenient development oversight, I'm sure. Every satellite has a server that breaks if a butterfly farts within a 5-mile radius. When they go down, you physically trek out there to fix them by completing a math minigame. This isn't your standard 2+2. Instead, it's more like 3 minus 4, 8 times in a row. It's so complicated. I once got so good at this minigame that I could complete it in 7.4 seconds. I'm not sure whether to be proud of this accomplishment or deeply concerned about my life choices. The other reason to leave your cozy concrete hellhole is to trek to these satellites to input a command to get the hash codes so you can write it down on a piece of paper and slap it on top of the drive box I mentioned earlier. This is how you get paid. And you're paid in points, a currency recognized only by the ASO shop, which sells upgrades that let you do your job slightly less inefficiently, alongside such luxuries as food that might have been made in this decade. The economic model makes NFTs look sensible by comparison. When you get your first points paycheck, it's enough to buy either a minor system upgrade or a pizza that tastes like it was made by someone whose only exposure to Italian cuisine was a badly dubbed mafia movie. I went with the upgrade. Silicon doesn't expire and doesn't judge me for talking to the mannequins. And yet, despite the tedium, there's something oddly satisfying about the routine. The rhythm of finding, tuning, downloading, and processing becomes almost meditative. Each upgrade makes the process more efficient, more rewarding. What starts as a frustrating slog gradually transforms into a well-oiled machine that you've built piece by overpriced piece. It's like a cosmic satisfactory, if the factory produced existential dread instead of electronic circuits. Sadly, satellites don't fix themselves. Trust me, I tried asking nicely. I even left cookies next to one as a bribe. The next day, the cookies were gone, but the satellite was still broken. This means venturing into the Dunkeltaler Forest, a verdant paradise of trees, hills, and cosmic horror waiting to ruin your day. The ATV is your chariot of choice, assuming you can drive it without wrapping yourself around a tree. Its handling model feels like it was designed by someone who thinks friction is a government conspiracy. The first time I tried to make a gentle turn, I ended up doing 3 barrel rolls and lodging myself between 2 pines. The ATV was fine. Physics was the only casualty. First expedition out, I discovered the construction site, a collection of empty barracks surrounding a hole so deep I can't see the bottom. There's a note nearby from someone who heard deep, bassy sounds coming from the hole. Being a rational scientist, I immediately decided to stay as far away from it as possible. Next, I found an abandoned shack containing a deer skull and a shovel. Both seem useful, one for digging, the other for scientific purposes. I absolutely do not plan to microwave it just to see what happens. That would be irresponsible. Anyway, moving on. The weather is delightful. By delightful, I mean somewhere from somewhat clear skies to perpetually overcast to storms that make Hurricane Katrina seem like a fucking rain cloud. The rain turns the already treacherous terrain into a slip and slide of potential broken bones. Nights are mostly pitch black, requiring a flashlight that runs on batteries designed to die exactly when you're furthest from base. It's as if the designers studied every horror movie ever made and thought, yes, but what if we made it worse? But here's the thing about the forest. It's beautiful, genuinely, hauntingly beautiful. The way the light filters through the trees, the gentle sway of branches in the wind, the soft crunch of gravel under your feet. When you're not being stalked by mannequins or hunted by glowing orbs of death, there's a serene quality to the environment that's almost meditative. Almost. As I work through my satellite maintenance duties, I can't shake the feeling that something's watching me. Probably just paranoia from isolation. Definitely not multiple alien species monitoring my every move. That would be crazy talk, right? Week 2 is when things get spicy. By spicy, I mean reality starts to fracture like cheap IKEA furniture after a particularly aggressive sit. It begins innocuously enough, with a picnic. Yes, a picnic. Between satellites Romeo and Sierra, I find what can only be described as an extraterrestrial lunch break. 2 triangle-shaped ships floating above the ground with picnic supplies and an unfolded blanket nearby. It's like finding out Euclidean shapes have developed a taste for alfresco dining. Ah yes, triangle. Shall we partake in some refreshments while observing the primitive human in his natural habitat? These are the Arirals, and they're about to become your extraterrestrial frenemies. At first, they're shy, disappearing when approached, but soon they grow bolder, progressing from casual picnickers to picnic-goers, to full-on home invaders with the subtlety of a football hooligan when he sees the wife after Arsenal lost 7-0. One day, my inbox got flooded with emails consisting mainly of hashtags spelling out outside. Looking through the window reveals one of their ships hovering outside the glass, a bit of a way off by one of the near radio towers, watching me like I'm a particularly boring zoo exhibit. Look, Martha, the human is processing signals again. How fascinating. Shall we poke it with a stick? Then they start building a treehouse between satellites Papa and Victor. Their construction methods involve invisible labor and materials that appear out of nowhere. OSHA would have a field day, assuming OSHA inspectors didn't immediately go insane upon witnessing construction that probably violates several laws of physics. So I'm gonna need to see some permits for manipulating the fabric of reality. From a gameplay perspective, the Arirals represent the game's most innovative mechanic, the reputation system. Based on how you interact with them, they'll either become helpful allies or dedicated tormentors. This isn't a simple binary choice like most morality systems. It's a gradient of reputation tracked invisibly in the background. Return their gun when they drop it, reputation increase. Steal their stuff, watch out for flaming mannequins, car bombs that make the IRA look like a bunch of children, or them hacking into your console and attempting to terminate your reactor, only being unsuccessful because the systems here were probably built off a grandma's coding from the fucking 20s. The Arirals operate on a philosophy I call, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is definitely not yours. They'll break into your base and leave glowing blue tubes everywhere. They'll steal your shrimp if you leave it out. They'll rearrange your furniture when you're not looking. One time I came back to find my entire bedroom had been rotated 90 degrees. Took me 3 hours to fix, and I'm still not sure how they managed it without removing the walls. This one didn't actually happen, but it's funny, so I'm just gonna keep it in here. But they're not all bad. They occasionally leave gifts, brownies, notes, and if you've been particularly respectful, i.e. not being a prick, maybe even a doll made in your image. Nothing says, we come in peace, like a voodoo doll of yourself. I keep mine on the nightstand. It watches me sleep. I've named it Mini-Me. Their invisibility technology means you rarely see them directly, just the effects of their presence. It's like having a poltergeist roommate who occasionally leaves you baked goods. I've had worse living situations. My first year uni roommate used to do crack in the bathroom. Their pranks gradually escalated from rearranging furniture to full-blown psychological warfare. Day 15 brought one of their more elaborate setups. My radar suddenly lit up with several pings coming from the direction of the construction site. You know, the one with the mysterious hull. Being the diligent scientist/idiot that I am, I decided to investigate. The pings led me to the second floor of one of the construction crew buildings, where I found a flickering lantern illuminating a notebook placed conspicuously in the corner of the room. Now, any reasonable person would immediately back away and return to the safety of their concrete bunker. I, however, possess the survival instincts of a moth in a flame factory, so naturally I picked up the notebook and started reading. Inside was an excerpt from Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. That cheerful little tale about a supercomputer that tortures the last 5 humans alive for all eternity. Light bedtime reading, really. The specific passage described the narrator's horrifying realization of being transformed into a gelatinous blob without a mouth to scream. As I was processing this delightful piece of literature, the door behind me slammed shut. Then came the sound of something charging at it from the other side. Before I could react, the door burst open, revealing an Ariral in its invisible glory. Being the brave cosmic warrior that I am, I attempted to defend myself with my trusty crowbar. Keyword, attempted. The Ariral simply snatched it out of my hands like I was a toddler trying to wield Excalibur, then beat me with it, knocking me over in the process as it drops the crowbar before fleeing from the room. That's right, all that build-up just to push me down and run away. It's like getting jumped by the world's most technologically advanced schoolyard bully. I picked myself up, collected my crowbar and wounded pride, and limped back to base. Dr. Bao's response to my report of the incident? Please refrain from unnecessary literary analysis while on duty. Satellite Papa requires maintenance. The moral of the story. When aliens leave reading material for you to find, assume it's a trap. Cosmic book clubs have much higher stakes than their terrestrial counterparts. So, overall, the relationship with the Arirals showcases what truly sets Voices of the Void apart from other horror games. It makes you an active participant in establishing boundaries with the unknown, rather than just being a victim of it. By the third week, I'd established a routine that would make corporate efficiency experts weep with joy. Wake up, check emails from Dr. Bao, delete the ones that are just passive-aggressive reminders, process signals, fix satellites, maintain generators, and clean up whatever mess the Arirals made overnight, and try not to think about the mannequins. The signal processing, which started as tedious busy work, has now become strangely compelling. With upgraded equipment, the detection is more precise, tuning more responsive, downloads faster, and processing more revealing. What was once a frustrating chore is now a well-oiled machine. And the signals themselves, they're getting weirder. Most are still cosmic background radiation, the universe's elevator music. But occasionally, I pick up something different. Something that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. There was this signal that sounded like breathing, so deep and rhythmic it couldn't possibly be human. The one that showed what looked like a satellite view of the base, but from an angle that would require a camera floating directly above. A camera that doesn't exist. The one that was just 30 seconds of a child laughing, followed by what sounded like someone being dragged across concrete. Each of these signals feels like a glimpse behind a curtain that wasn't meant to be moved. A peek at something vast and incomprehensible that exists just beyond our perception. It's both terrifying and addictive. I find myself processing more signals, not for the points, but for the chance to hear something new, something impossible. The satellites too feel different now. What were once just functional pieces of equipment have developed personalities in my mind. Romeo always breaks down right after it rains. Sierra only responds to the hashcode command if you type it exactly right, with no spaces at the end. Victor seems to attract strange occurrences. I swear once I saw a mannequin that had somehow made its way outside. How? No idea. Why? Even less idea. Even the base has changed. What was once a concrete prison is now home. I've cleaned most of the grime, organized the trash, set up comfortable spaces for work and relaxation. I've placed the mannequins in positions that are slightly less unsettling. I've named the skull in the basement Yorick and sometimes tell it about my day. These are all perfectly normal, well-adjusted behaviors for someone living in isolation with possible alien contact. The routine becomes a comfort, a structure to cling to as reality gets increasingly flexible around me. As long as I'm processing signals, fixing satellites, and completing Dr. Bao's tasks, everything else can be compartmentalized. The mannequins that move when I'm not looking, just a quirk of the facility. The shadows that sometimes look like people, a trick of the light. The constant feeling of being watched, standard paranoia from isolation. This is fine. Everything is fine. Let's talk about the mannequins. Oh god, the mannequins. When I first arrived, I assumed they were just creepy decorations left by the previous tenant, who clearly had questionable taste in interior design. Yes, this concrete bunker needs more featureless wooden humanoids. That'll really tie the room together. For the first few days, they stay put. Just lifeless wooden figures in various poses throughout the facility. Then, subtle changes. A mannequin that was facing the wall is now facing the room. One that was in the living quarters is now in the hallway. Another that had its arms at its side now has them raised, as if reaching for something. You tell yourself it's a glitch in the simulation, or that you're misremembering their positions, or that the Arirals are moving them as part of their ongoing psychological warfare campaign. All perfectly reasonable explanations that are much better than, the mannequins are alive and stalking me. Then you catch one moving. You find a mannequin outside your base. You turn around and look away. You turn back and it's closer. This is fine. Everything is fine. Eventually they become active stalkers, following you around the facility in a silent wooden parade. I once left the base for 30 minutes to fix a satellite, came back, and found all the mannequins had relocated to form a circle around my bed. Very normal, very cool. But to be fair, as soon as I noticed that they'd start moving, I went around the base with a crowbar and I broke every single mannequin I could find. Now there's just one mannequin who keeps coming back outside. I mean, honestly, I'm starting to name him. I think his name's Frederick. Sometimes I chuck him into the river. Sometimes I chuck him into the incinerator. He always comes back. I don't know why. I just, he's my pal, apparently. I discovered through extensive scientific research, i.e. panicking and grabbing the mannequin behind me and chucking it into the incinerator, that setting them on fire transforms them from passive observers to aggressive hunters that chase you until destroyed. Because of course they do. Nothing says normal workplace hazard like a burning mannequin sprinting at you full speed while emitting sounds that might be wood cracking, or might be screaming. The mannequins embody one of the game's core strengths, taking something mundane and transforming it into a source of persistent low-grade dread. They're not jump scare machines or boss fights, they're just there, always watching, waiting, moving when you're not looking, a constant reminder that in the forest, even inanimate objects might have opinions about you. They represent the philosophical horror of not knowing whether what you perceive matches reality. A fundamental uncertainty that strikes at the core of human existence. If you can't trust your own perception of something as simple as a wooden mannequin, what else might be shifting in the periphery of your consciousness? I've developed coping mechanisms. I arrange them in less threatening poses. I place them in rooms I rarely use. I've started saying excuse me when I walk past one, just in case. These are all perfectly normal, well-adjusted behaviors. As if mannequins inside the base weren't unsettling enough. I once climbed the radio tower just outside the main building. You know the one, that tall metal structure you use to reset the drone when it loses location or gets confused about where it's supposed to deliver your stuff. Essential infrastructure, really. I was about halfway up when I noticed something dangling from the very top. Not part of the tower's structure, but something else entirely. A mannequin suspended by a hook. One of those grappling tools of rope connecting two hooks that you can find in the game. It was just hanging there, gently swaying in the breeze, its blank face pointed directly at the facility. How the hell did it get up there? The hook isn't exactly easy to use with that kind of precision, especially at that height. It would take careful planning and execution, neither of which I'd expect from the Arirals, who can barely operate a door without making a cosmic spectacle out of it. After seeing it, I acknowledged it before getting on with my day. Signals aren't gonna process themselves. Went back to the base, processed some more signals, and tried to forget about it. The next morning, I checked the tower. Again, but this time, the mannequin was gone. Not fallen, not moved. Completely gone, hook and all. No evidence it had ever been there, except for my own memories and, fortunately because I was recording. I checked every inch of the facility and surrounding forest. No sign of that mannequin, no drag marks, no discarded hook or rope, nothing. Just another unexplained event in a growing catalogue of things that shouldn't happen but do. The next night I woke up at exactly 3:33 AM to the sound of something scratching at my window. Probably just a branch in the wind, right? Except there are no trees close enough to the building to reach my second floor window. When I finally worked up the courage to look, there was nothing there. But in the distance, silhouetted against the moon, was the radio tower. And for a split second, so brief I might have imagined it, I saw something climbing down it. Something with too many limbs moving in too many directions at once. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The radio tower is now on my list of places I only visit during broad daylight, preferably while armed with something heavy and flammable. This didn't actually happen, but creative liberties. The forest has eyes. The mannequins have whatever mannequins have instead of eyes. And sometimes things appear and disappear with no explanation, leaving you to question whether they were ever really there at all. Just another day at the office. Sleep is a complicated matter in the Swiss Alps. You need it, your stamina depletes as you work, and falling below 20% means you stumble, can't sprint, and start seeing things that definitely aren't there. But sleeping itself comes with its own hazards. First, there are the dreams. Surreal, black and white sequences where you navigate strange landscapes with altered physics. Some are benign puzzles, like jumping from platform to platform or navigating a maze. Others are more nightmarish. Being chased by something you can't quite see, falling endlessly into darkness, or finding yourself back in the base but everything is slightly wrong in ways you can't define. Then there's the insomniac. A tall, dark, skinny humanoid figure that appears when your stamina drops below 20%. You can't see it when you look directly at it, but it's always there in your peripheral vision, forcing your gaze towards it like a cosmic magnet. Stay exhausted long enough and it becomes fully visible, actively hunting you to force you to sleep. The first time I encountered the insomniac, I was in the basement fixing the breaker box. I felt my vision being pulled away from what I was doing. When I tried to look, there was nothing there. But the moment I focused back on the breaker, my gaze was dragged away again, and I could swear that I could see eyes. Thinking I was just tired, I headed upstairs to bed, only to catch a glimpse of something tall and dark following me up the stairs. When I turned to look, it vanished. I made it to bed and woke up hours later, feeling refreshed and convinced I'd imagined the whole thing. Until it happened again, and again. Each time I let my stamina get too low, he returns. A living reminder that in the Dunkeltaler forest, even your own perception can't quite be trusted. Sleep becomes a calculated risk. Necessary for survival, but potentially opening the door to experiences that blur the line between dream and reality. I now maintain a strict schedule, going to bed before my stamina drops too low, always making sure to lock the door and keep a light on. Not that it would help if something really wanted to get in. Around day 26, the signals take a disturbing turn. Let me paint you a picture. I'm at my workstation scanning for the usual cosmic static when I detect something unusual. The signal strength is off the charts, clearer and stronger than anything I've picked up before. I lock onto it, tune the frequency, and start the download. The preview panel shows... Wait, that can't be right. It's an aerial view of the base. Not some alien landscape or distant star, but my base, from directly above. The image is grainy, but unmistakable. The concrete structure, the satellite array, the radio tower. It's like someone, or something, is taking surveillance photos. Probably just a weather satellite, I tell myself, because denial is the first line of defense against encroaching madness. I process the signal, file it away, and go back to work. But then I receive another signal. This time, the image is from outside the front window of the base, looking directly into the signal room. I can see myself sitting at the terminal, downloading the very signal I'm looking at. It's like a digital Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. At this point, I decided to fight cosmic surveillance with good old-fashioned pettiness. I gathered all of these alien mannequins the Arirals had been using to torment me, and strategically positioned them to block the window view. If something was watching me through the signals, it would now get a lovely view of wooden aliens instead of my increasingly paranoid face. Fighting eldritch horror with interior decorating. Not something they teach you in astronomer school, but surprisingly effective. But after we finish processing this signal, we get another one, this time the closest yet. This signal shows a view from inside the base, from the vent directly above the signal room. It's an upside down view looking down at me as I work. There's no camera there couldn't be. I've checked every inch of this facility, including the vents, after this incident of course. And finally, the last signal in this progression. When I download it, I see a view from inside the locker directly to my left. The image shows the inside of the locker, and you can faintly make out the signal room through the gaps at the top of the locker. Now, there are two types of people in horror scenarios. There are those who heed warnings and live to tell about it, and there are those who say, "What's the worst that could happen?" before meeting said worst. Guess which category I fall into. I turn to the locker, steel myself, and walk closer. The game at this point warns me to not look in the locker, through a pop-up at the bottom right. Did I listen? Of course not. As I approached it, an ominous feeling emanated from it. I drew closer and eventually opened it. Then the game crashes. Not a scripted crash, not a transition to another scene. A literal complete crash to desktop. When I reload, I'm standing exactly where I was. The locker now empty, the signal gone from my records. There's no evidence any of it ever happened, except for my rapidly evaporating sanity. These signals perfectly encapsulate what makes Voices of the Void special. It's not just about what you see, it's about what sees you. The boundaries between observer and observed blur until you can't tell which side of the telescope you're on. Are you studying the void, or is the void studying you? The answer, increasingly, seems to be both. Just when you've adapted to the rerolls and their interdimensional pranks, the game decides to ramp up the cosmic horror to 11. It starts with an obelisk that falls from the sky, landing right outside the base with the force of a fucking megaton nuclear warhead, knocking over everything and causing all that organization I'd spent fucking hours doing to be undone. And it sets off all the alarms like it's the end of the world, which, to be fair, it kind of is. At least for my hopes of having a normal workday. The structure, when approached, displays a holographic warning. A grid of images showing a human/humanoid figure interacting with what looks like a miniature sun, with clear negative outcomes. In any other job, this would warrant an immediate call to whatever government agency handles extraterrestrial warnings. In this one, it barely justifies an entry in the daily log. Day 25. Giant alien obelisk fell from sky. Coffee machine still broken. Please address at earliest convenience. Shortly after, yellow wisps start appearing throughout the forest at night. Unlike these pink wisps that I had found before that flee when approached, these are aggressive, attacking you on sight by picking you up and ripping off your limbs one by one. Nothing quite says fun evening stroll like being dismembered by floating orbs of light. I tried outrunning them on the ATV once. Bad idea. I ended up wrapped around a tree while the wisp patiently waited for me to untangle myself before resuming the dismemberment process. Then comes the pyramid signal, a transmission showing a pyramid-shaped object flying through space. Within days, this entity appears in the physical world. A massive, golden, tripod structure with scythe-like legs that walk across the landscape, collecting all the yellow wisps with a laser before picking them up and dispelling them. It's like watching a cosmic janitor clean up after a particularly rowdy party. If the janitor was a terrifying alien construct the size of a high-rise. I tried approaching it once, it didn't even acknowledge my existence. Nothing makes you feel more insignificant than being ignored by an interdimensional cleaning service. Sorry sir, your existential crisis isn't in my job description, I'm just here for the glowing orbs. This marks the arrival of the Rositals, a second alien faction with technology that makes the Arirals look like they're playing with sticks and mud. They deploy tentacled scouts that scan everything in sight, including me. I stood very still, hoping they'd conclude I was just an unusually fleshy tree. They did not. After this, they send a robot to clean my ATV, which was actually kind of considerate, considering the amount of times I'd fucking— oh shit. considering the amount of times I died from whacking myself into the ground in Mach 7. Then after this comes the arrival of a ship that looks like a mothership, a construct so large that it blocks out the sun as it passes overhead, casting the entire forest in shadow for several minutes. Climate change and fast forward. Most significantly, they temporarily take over the area around the mysterious hole near Satellite Yankee. They set up equipment that shoots a yellow beam down into the depths. While they were there, I ran through, managing to get past the exterior guards that shoot lasers at you. You see a humanoid-type robot alien thing dropping things down the hole. I definitely, intentionally slipped and fell down the hole and got incinerated by the laser. So, yeah. Just as I'm starting to get used to juggling the rerolls and Rositals, hints of even more alien factions begin to appear. Strange ships in the night sky, mysterious objects drop near the base, new threats that make the previous ones seem almost friendly by comparison. There's an entire interstellar conflict that unfolds later in the game, with alien factions going to war in your satellite array, but I'll leave that for you to discover on your own. Trust me, witnessing it firsthand is half the fun. And some things are better experienced than explained, and a full-scale alien invasion happening while you're trying to fulfill your daily quota is definitely one of them. Throughout all this escalating strangeness, I'm still trying to process my daily signals and fulfill Dr. Bao's requests. His daily emails don't even acknowledge the cosmic weirdness happening literally outside the window. Please deliver free level 3 signals and check the hash codes on the satellites Whiskey Tango and X-Ray. Progress on the quarterly report is satisfactory. As the game progresses, your role transforms from active participant to witness. The perfect execution of Cosmic Horror's core themes, that humans are utterly insignificant in the grand scheme of things. We're not the main characters in this story, we're barely even extras, we're just ants watching gods pass overhead, hoping we don't get stepped on in the process. This might sound strange after everything I've described, but Voices of the Void has a surprisingly cozy side. Between the alien visitations, the mannequin stalking, and the warfare unfolding right outside your window, there's a quiet satisfaction in making the concrete bunker your own. The cleaning isn't just busy work, it's a way to exert control over your environment when everything else is spiraling into chaos. Each trash pile cleared, each surface wiped down, each room organized, feels like a small victory against the entropy of the universe. By the third week, the base transforms from a disgusting health hazard to a functional, even comfortable living space. The upgrade path for your equipment also creates a satisfying progression curve. What starts as frustratingly slow and inefficient gradually becomes streamlined and powerful. Your first successful level 3 signal processing feels like a genuine achievement. The first time you manage to fix a satellite server in under 10 seconds gives you a rush of accomplishment that's embarrassingly potent considering you're basically just playing a simple math minigame. Even the forest, for all of its dangers, has moments of serene beauty. The way the light filters through the trees at dawn, the gentle patter of rain on the leaves, the soft crunch of gravel under your ATV tires as you careen wildly off a cliff because the handling is still atrocious no matter how much you upgrade it. There's a strange comfort in routine, even when that routine includes checking your living quarters for mannequins that may have relocated while you were out. Wake up, check emails, process signals, fix satellites, scream internally at the cosmic horror of it all. Go to bed, repeat. The base becomes your sanctuary, the one place you can exert some measure of control over your environment. You decide where the furniture goes, you decide which mannequins stay and which get incinerated. You decide how to organize your storage, display your collections, create your workspace. By the 4th week, I had transformed the main room into an efficient signal processing hub. The living quarters into a comfortable retreat complete with decorations from the shop, and the basement into, well, it's still a terrifying hellscape because of the locked door with cow carcasses, but I'd at least cleaned up the rest of it. Until a fucking warning missile from space slams outside the facility, and then you have to do it all over again for the entire fucking concrete bunker. There's something genuinely satisfying about carving out a space of normalcy in an environment that's actively trying to destroy your sanity. It's like building a sandcastle as the tide comes in. Doomed but defiant. And that's what makes Voices of the Void special. It understands that horror is most effective when it's contrasted with moments of safety and comfort. The base isn't just a setting, it's a character in its own right, evolving alongside your experience, reflecting your efforts to maintain sanity in an insane situation. In a strange way, I became attached to the concrete bunker and its surrounding satellites. They were my responsibility, my domain. Even when reality was fracturing around me, when aliens were waging war in the forest, when mannequins were stalking me through the hallways, I still felt a certain pride in keeping everything running smoothly. My signals were processed, my reports filed, my satellites maintained. Perhaps that's the true horror of Voices of the Void. Not the monsters or the aliens, but the way it makes you normalize the abnormal, find comfort in the uncomfortable, and take pride in maintaining a routine that's fundamentally absurd. Just like real life. The current pre-alpha story ends with the war on day 47. Day 48 grants the achievement for completion, and day 49 becomes a permanent loop, continuing to spawn random events but never advancing. The game saves here, ready to continue when more content arrives. But what makes Voices of the Void stand out isn't just its horror elements, it's how seamlessly it blends the mundane with the extraordinary. One moment you're filing reports and processing signals, the next you're witnessing an interdimensional war between alien factions. The horror works precisely because it's built on a foundation of routine and normalcy. The game excels at pacing its weirdness. It starts with subtle wrongness, mannequins that might have moved, strange sounds that could be the wind. Then comes the dreams, the wisps, the arreals with their invisible antics. By the time the other aliens arrive with their cosmic war, you're already primed to accept the insanity as just another day at the office. There's a masterful tonal balance at work here. The existential dread of cosmic horror sits comfortably alongside moments of genuine humor. The paranormal elements are terrifying, but there's a strange coziness to making the base your own, establishing routines and creating order amid chaos. It's like The Shining meets Stardew Valley. Isolation horror with base building elements. The game understands something fundamental about human nature. Our ability to adapt to almost anything, to find patterns in chaos, to create meaning where none exists. As Dr. Kell, you're not just surviving the horrors of Dunkeltaler Forest. You're categorizing them, filing reports on them, making them part of your daily routine. And in doing so, you're embodying what might be the most human response to the incomprehensible, trying to understand it in our own limited terms. Now, I should clarify, I've taken some creative liberties in my retelling. Did I embellish certain encounters for dramatic effect? Maybe. Did I exaggerate how aggressively the mannequins chase you when set on fire? Perhaps. A good story deserves good storytelling after all. But the core of what makes Voices of the Void special remains true. It brilliantly combines a carefully crafted story progression with unpredictable random events. The main storyline follows a deliberate sequence. The Arreals will have their picnic, build their treehouse, and the cosmic war will escalate. But layered on top of this structured narrative is a constantly shifting tapestry of random encounters that keep you perpetually off balance. The mannequins might rearrange themselves while you're fixing a satellite. A thick fog might roll in during an important signal download. Meat might literally rain from the sky while you're trying to file your daily report. The game masterfully weaves these random elements around its core story beats, ensuring that no two playthroughs feel exactly the same, even as they follow the same overall arc. This hybrid approach to horror is what makes the game so effective. Embellishments aside, you experience both the dread of inevitable cosmic events and the constant tension of not knowing what smaller horrors might be waiting for you when you step outside. It's like being in a haunted house where the layout never changes, but what jumps out at you always does. But what I haven't exaggerated is how genuinely compelling this game is. Even in its pre-alpha state, the signal processing loop is satisfying, the exploration rewarding, the horror effective without relying on cheap jump scares. It respects the player's intelligence, rarely explaining its mysteries outright, instead allowing you to piece things together through observation and deduction. And the best part? It's completely free. You can experience Dr. Kell's psychological deterioration without spending a single point of your real-world currency. The game is still in active development, with new content and horrors being added regularly. So go download it, discover for yourself what happens when you point satellites at the void and hit record. Process signals, fix satellites, make the concrete bunker your home. Just remember to keep your flashlight batteries charged, and if someone emails you with a bunch of hashtags spelling behind you, it's probably best not to turn around. The true brilliance of Voices of the Void lies in how it positions the unknown, not as something entirely external, but as something that bleeds into the known world. The boundary between what we understand and what lies beyond our comprehension isn't a solid wall, it's a permeable membrane. The unknown doesn't just exist in the depths of space or in the signals we process. It exists in the mannequins that move when we aren't looking, in the forest that breathes when we turn our backs, in the gaps between what we perceive and what is real. But isn't that the point of all of this? To reach beyond our understanding, to strain our ears against the cosmic static in hopes of hearing something, anything that confirms we're not alone. Dr. Kell's journey isn't just about surviving alien encounters or maintaining satellites. It's about humanity's eternal struggle to make sense of a universe that refuses to make sense, to find patterns in randomness, to create meaning when none might exist. The unknown is both our greatest fear and our most powerful drive. We point our satellites at the void not because we're certain something is there, but because the possibility that something might be is too tantalizing to ignore. We process signals from the depths of space not because we expect to find meaning, but because the alternative, that there is no meaning to be found, is too terrifying to accept. And here's the most incredible thing. I've barely scratched the surface of what Voices of the Void has to offer. I haven't told you about the rituals at Stonehenge that can summon demonic entities when you arrange the right combination of human skulls. I haven't mentioned the secret areas hidden beyond the map boundaries, accessible only through careful manipulation of physics or glitches. I didn't even touch on the bizarre secrets tucked away in the tutorial, which itself contains an entire labyrinthian backroom-style area if you know how to break through the walls. I didn't tell you about the Bad Sun event, where the sun is replaced by a black square that burns your flesh if you look at it. Or what happens when you microwave a deer skull. Seriously, don't. There are dozens of random events I never encountered, countless secrets I never uncovered, and entire alien factions I barely interacted with. In the end, Voices of the Void asks a simple question. What would you do if you heard something talking back from the darkness? Would you hang up? Or would you, like me, like Dr. Kell, like every curious fool who's ever pointed an antenna at the stars, lean in closer and say, hello? The answer, I suspect, says more about us than anything we might hear from the void. After all, in the Dunkel Tala forest, it's not just the void that's listening. It's everything else too. And some things once heard can never be unheard. Some sights once seen can never be unseen. Some knowledge once gained can never be forgotten. Oh, well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy. I'd first like to thank the people who support the channel. That being The Milkman, Aroxano, Vinicus Franca, Ice Bear, and A Brick Wall. Thank you all so much for your support. It genuinely means more than you can know. And if you want your name to be read out at the end of videos, make sure to either join the channel as a member or become a member of the Patreon. Obviously, you don't have to. It just really helps support the channel. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. I mean, you don't have to, but if you've got this far, chances are you probably enjoyed the video, so, you know, might as well help me out. Follow my Twitter, because I want Pirates to follow me. He said he would. I met that man. IRL. He said he'd follow me, and he never did. Ever. I am molding. But yeah, no, if I get big enough, maybe he will, finally. Pyro, if you're watching this, please. No, but seriously, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know down below whatever games you'd like me to cover, because, like this one, I do take suggestions, occasionally. And, you know. But yeah, I think that's all. So yeah, once again, hope you did enjoy, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.